good morning to Andrew Gordon-Brown, Headmaster at Kingswood, Bath. Lovely to have a chat. We spoke when you were just in position, so it'll be really interesting to hear, I think almost a year on, how life is going your end.
Well, do you know, you're not going to believe this, but it's actually almost 2 years on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that, I guess that's the kind of, that's the pandemic talking, right? Because it's been 2 completely different years. You know, my first year, I mean, I started in September 2020. My first year was all about masks and bubbles and learning zones and basically not meeting anyone.
Yeah.
And then this last year has been a kind of, I guess, a supercharged effort to try and get out and about and meet people.
Sure.
In particular, I think kind of parents, alumni, members of the Bath community, which I just got no opportunity in my first year. So it's been definitely a kind of game of 2 halves, if you like, so far.
And Andrew, in your opinion, now that you have been there for a little while, what do you think sets Kingswood apart from other schools in the area?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've got to know the heads of the other schools in Bath quite well over the last couple of years, both the independent school heads, but also the state school heads, and we've got a lot of good state schools in Bath as well.
Sure.
I think in terms of, and I can't really comment, I suppose, too much about other schools, but I think what sets Kingswood apart, we started our life, 275 years ago as a boarding school. But what's happened over, I guess, the last 50 or 60 years is there's been a transition, and that Kingswood has become predominantly a day school, but with a kind of really healthy and significant boarding kind of bolt-on. And I think in the Bath market, that idea that we can have a kind of big thriving day school, but that holds the kind of benefits of a boarding ethos and that kind of longer school day, that's certainly something that's distinctive for us. Mm-hmm. I also think the Kingswood ethos is distinctive. We certainly, I think we talk a lot about the virtues and values of our founder, John Wesley, who founded the school, as I said, 275 years ago. And he was quite simple in his reasoning for founding Kingswood. He just said he wanted young people to be happy, he wanted them to be of good moral character, and he wanted them to be useful to others. And sure. I think if you asked me today, what do we want of our Kingswood students, and what do I observe? I absolutely observe kids who love school. So I think they are happy. But I think we impress upon them about the importance of making the most of their talents. But yes, because that's an intrinsically good thing to do, but also because we live in community and they ought to be making use of those to serve others. So there's quite a big focus at Kingswood, I suppose, on that ethos of being kind and being useful and being helpful to others.
And do you think that over the past few years, particularly, that this sort of educational offering at senior school has changed materially? And if so, how? Oh, it looks like we're having a connection glitch. Sorry, stay with me. Hopefully we'll get over this one. I don't know which end that is, whether it's ours or Kingswood.
Buffering on the connection. I wonder if you could... Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll do.
We'll get this again.
Antonio, I'm back. I think I got your question about how the educational offering might have changed over the last couple of years. Right. Absolutely. I mean, in many respects, not much change. School's not a kind of rocket science. We look after teenagers, and I think we do that well. I think one of the things that I know has changed at Kingswood, but also elsewhere, is there's a much bigger focus on the fact that mental health amongst kids is just as important as physical health, and I think all schools are placing an emphasis on that. Actually, we're in the process. We've in fact just appointed our first ever health and well-being lead at Kingswood, and our medical centre is in the process of being transformed into the Kingswood Health and Well-being Hub. So rather than it being a place where kids go when they're sick, We want it to be a kind of beating heart of the school where people go to be well. And what we're thinking about right now is what are the different elements of a kind of holistic approach to health that we should be bringing into that well-being hub. So yes, it's going to be the medical center, but also there's a focus on things like counseling and physio. It's in a beautiful garden, actually, so there's an opportunity to put a bit of a kind of Zen meditation garden in there. So we just want pupils and staff to feel that actually that medical center is no longer just that place where with nurses in uniforms, but there are a whole lot of people there to support the holistic approach to wellness.
Sure, absolutely. And I can't hold an interview with you without mentioning your amazing positioning. I mean, you are positioned in the wonderful city of Bath, benefiting from both the sort of rural setting, but also all that city offers. How do your parent body tend to be local? What sort of demographic do you have within people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think, Antonio, we are really blessed. You know, we're on this gorgeous big campus on the Lansdowne of Bath. But you literally, in 5 minutes, and you're in the middle of this World Heritage City. Yeah. So I do feel really lucky. I mean, in terms of our demographic, in the senior school, about just over 20% of all the pupils are boarders. And so really, we've got around 80% of our senior school kids who are from Bath and the surrounds. And to be honest, we do run bus routes from kind of all four corners of Bath and Somerset to bring kids into school. So it's quite a kind of wide demographic in terms of people traveling in to get to school each day.
Mm. And just touching also, because I know you're passionate about the bursaries side of things. For those families that aren't able to offer this education for children, what's Kingswood's stance on transformational bursaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kingswood's certainly not a wealthy school, but I think I do feel we're nonetheless in a position of privilege. And I think, with that definitely comes responsibility. So since I've joined, we've actually actively launched a transformational bursaries program. And we've had a couple of really generous kind of wealthy donors who've given us some money to kickstart that venture. And so we've got 2 kids with us this year for the first time on that program in the 6th form. We've recruited 3 or 4 more for the coming September. I mean, Kings has been doing transformational bursaries since long before I joined, but it's an area that I've really felt needed to be front and center in our strategic plan.
Sure.
So and actually we've got a focus at the moment on the 6th form. I think the ability to bring students in for a pre-university experience who might otherwise never have had that chance is one of the kind of ways we're focusing.
Mm. Well, that leads me perfectly actually on the university side, because I'm always fascinated. Schools are definitely, you are under huge pressure in lots of respects to have 6th formers leaving and going on to wonderful Russell Group universities, and Kingswood have got a renown for a fantastic academic record. Equally, I think that there are also other routes available, and certainly sort of education for life has never been more important, as we touched on mental health and otherwise. How do you balance the rigors of academic results and league tables with educating a child for life?
Yeah, in fact, it's that educate for life is one of the kind of 4 pillars, if you like, of our recently kind of relaunched strategic plan. I mean, I would say, look, probably 90% of Kingswood school leavers, maybe more actually, go off to kind of leading universities. So we do need to be preparing kids to kind of jump through the rigors of A levels to get onto university, first choice, next step destinations. But actually, for me, it's much more important that we're preparing them to lead kind of meaningful and fulfilled lives. And in fact, interestingly, we've just kind of rebranded our PSHCE program as life skills, because that's what it is. And we've also, we run a program of general studies for our 6th formers. We've actually taken a decision from September to to introduce life skills lessons in addition to the general studies in the sixth form, because our sixth formers have told us that, you know, they really want to learn more about, you know, for example, introduction to basic finance, which is something I kind of, given my background, feel passionately about. But students want to know about how the student finance works. They want to know about the kind of principles of investing. They want to know about, you know, what's a pension? How does the tax system work? So we've also, something on the strategic plan over the next 12 months is a big focus on cookery. I think kids need to leave school recognizing that being able to cook a wholesome meal using fresh ingredients on a kind of shoestring budget, that's got to be one of the bedrocks of society.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I've got we've actually put in for some planning for a cookery school actually at Kingswood, which I'll be able to say more about probably at a future interview.
Absolutely, that sounds fantastic. And how do the students integrate within the community? Do they have much interaction into Bath and the area?
Yeah, do you know, I was every Monday, so literally before this interview, I was talking to the whole school in assembly, and that's my my opportunity each week to well, to read the school notices and celebrate everything that's gone on in the week before, and then also to give a bit of the headmaster's message. And one of the things that struck me as I was reading the school notices was just in the last week, I was talking about 3 really significant fundraising efforts and charitable fundraising efforts that our kids have taken it upon themselves to launch in support of local charities in Bath. So there's a really kind of strong culture here, I suppose, of looking out and saying, in wanting to be kind of celebrated as a kind of generous player in Bath. So our kids really are really good at that. You know, I also think on a more kind of structural level, all of our sixth formers get trained. We've got a partnership with Mentoring Plus, and Mentoring Plus is a local Bath-based charity that use the services of mentoring volunteers and also mentoring professionals actually, but they're training our sixth formers to be mentors, and then the sixth formers who are really keen to take that training to the next level end up getting trained to a level where they go out into the local community and mentor year 6 children in local primary schools. So that's something which kind of existed before the pandemic at Kingswood, but since I've arrived, we've got that back on track, and we've got at least a dozen of our year 12s at the moment going every week into the community to mentor kids, particularly in year 6, pupils from local primary schools who are trying to cope with that, getting ready to cope with the transition to senior school.
It's so valuable, that, isn't it? Because I think, you know, it really adds another facet to a child's or to a young adult's education, as we touched on earlier. I think, you know, it particularly for the very conscientious child, it can become a real sort of, you know, academic hothouse focus because they're so driven by getting good results. But actually to have the different elements and dynamics that make school life as rich and colourful in the last 2 years.
You know, Anthony, I was going to say, one of the things I was going to say in answer to that question is, I think that what the pandemic did do is it brought the heads of Bath schools together more closely, actually, and looking across the independent and state sector for opportunities. And so, for example, our pupils are involved in a Bath-wide initiative we've just formed a student partnership, student parliament, and that's got representatives from every school in Bath on that local student parliament. And that's a kind of another good example about saying, well, look, it's important that we look for opportunities within Bath and surrounds for kids to recognise that Kingswood's not the only school. You know?
No, which I think is great. And as you say, when they go on beyond Kingswood, it arms them very well for the world ahead, doesn't it?
I lost you there, Antonio.
Sorry.
I've got some...
that arms them for the world outside, you know, beyond Kingswood, which I think is really key.
Yeah, do you know, my as you can tell from my background, I wasn't born and bred in the UK. I kind of grew up in South Africa in a very different environment. And when I think about my own life story, about having, you know, I've worked in different jobs different industry sectors on different continents. And I think that, you know, getting the right qualifications has been important for me to be able to do that. But actually, a lot of it is around the kind of personal qualities and skills that we want to develop in young people to be able to take advantage of a kind of good opportunity wherever in the world that might be. And I think teaching children to kind of embrace difference and to kind of celebrate diversity is all part of that kind of life preparation to say, well, look, you never know where the next opportunity for you might come up. But if you recognize that we're in a kind of big and diverse world, and you just and you kind of embrace that fact, those are really good skills to be able to impart.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking that Kings would have an open forum or some live event that students can voice their opinions on sort of social justice and diversity?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. We've got something which is called the Cultural Discussion Group, and that's led by some sixth formers, and they just pick topics probably on a kind of fortnightly basis, and we'll do a short presentation to other groups of students. So today we're going to talk about, I don't know, pride and the LGBT plus community, and students effectively get into that forum and teach each other and ask questions. And I think that's overseen by Janine Solomon Gardner. She's our diversity and inclusion lead, which is a post we appointed to just over a year ago. And in fact, one of our other sixth formers approached me recently, probably in the last 3 weeks, to say she would really like to do something to introduce students to the whole area of kind of neurodiversity. That there are kids at Kingswood who with ADHD, there are kids who are on the kind of Asperger's spectrum, there are kids with different learning needs. And it's actually, she's pulled this forum together for students to come and learn about that. And she's one of our sixth formers with ADHD herself, and said, actually, I wanted to talk to others about that experience. So I think, I think it's really important that particularly our sixth formers, they kind of feel empowered to say, look, we want to lead on this. These are things we feel passionately about, and I'm never going to stand in their way, for sure.
Wow, well, gosh, amazing, and great that you're keeping the door open and letting them have that opportunity. So it sounds fantastic. Andrew, thank you for your time. As always, a busy morning. Really enjoyed catching up, and look forward to doing so definitely in a shorter time than 2 years. We need to speak before then.
Yeah. Antonia, it's been a real pleasure. So thanks for the opportunity, and absolutely, do feel free. And any of the listeners, come to Kingswood. We've got a special spot here on the Northern Hills, rising up out of Bath, and I'd love to show you around.
Well, look forward to that. Many thanks, Andrew. Take care.